Every character played by the same actor is now a part of one continuous story. Which actor has the best story arc? Woody Harrelson. Kid started out tending bar with a former professional baseball player. A natural athlete himself, he was particularly skilled at 2-on-2 basketball. He exhibited strange personal behaviors however, which included selling his wife to a millionaire for one night of passion. He dabbled in law enforcement, only to be implicated in the Great New York train robbery of '95. Soon after, he and his young bride went on a mass murder spree and had to skip out of the galaxy altogether. After working a spell with the greatest pilot smuggler he'd ever seen, he returned to Earth to start a pornography empire built on the fundamental premise of free speech and expression. Unfortunately, zombies were decimating America at the time, and he needed to put his unique skills and survival instincts into high gear to help himself and his newfound friends. Scientists at the time tried to kill off the zombies with a simian virus, and he was pulled into humanity's last stand against killer apes. In his remarkable life, he helped train a future resistance leader who survived a twisted teenage battle royale, but things went really off the rails for him when he decided to get into bounty hunting and took on a psychopath with a pneumatic bolt gun. He dialed back the theatrics and became sheriff of a small town in Missouri before contracting terminal cancer and ultimately taking his own life. Edit. Spelling because of my fat thumbs on my phone. Patrick Stewart. He rises to power, becoming king in the 1600s. Hundreds of years later he develops amazing psychic abilities and opens up a school for other gifted people like him, only to become captain of the Enterprise centuries later. Leonardo DiCaprio has a hell of a story. First he is a petty thief in Titanic, then steals $4 million in Catch Me If You Can, brings in beer during Prohibition as Gatsby, then $200 million in a scam in Wolf of Wall Street. So, clearly all the same character who is getting better as a criminal as time goes on. Gary Oldman. Punk rocker to prime minister by way of a presidential assassin, an immortal vampire, a famous composer, a Russian terrorist, a dwarf and a wizard. It's gotta be Harrison Ford. He starts as Han from Star Wars. He tries to settle down with Leia after Return of the Jedi, feels trapped in married life because he's actually a scoundrel. Han shot first never forget, decides to ghost everyone and lay low on some backworld primitive planet, Earth. Assumes the identity of Indiana Jones. Goes on all sorts of adventures while pretending to be some senile old guy's son. Sorry, Henry Jones Sr. Father dies. Han starts to settle down from all the adventuring. He's built a pretty sweet life, starts to get comfortable, but still has all of his charm. Moves on from being an adored archaeology professor and eventually gets discovered by a political machine that thinks he's incredibly electable. Eventually Han uses his charm to become president of the United States before kicking those terrorists off his plane. They also turned him into a spy and changed his name to Jack Ryan. And to think it all started out as just another delinquent in American graffiti. Still, he did go on to become president of the US. Samuel L. Jackson. Here's what you're working with. Nick Fury as the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. has access to time travel and interstellar capabilities. He runs a number of operations in a Legends of Tomorrow style which keep history on track and ultimately saves pretty much everything. Very special operations such as correcting the Hitler problem, eradicating snakes on a MF plane, defending the GD order, safeguarding a very important suitcase, and making sure the right people die in a cabin. Dang, so Doctor Strange is actually secretly Sherlock Holmes. Huh. Edit. My first ever edit silver. And there are 2 of them. Thank you all so much for making me feel better on my sick day. Mary Elizabeth Winstead. After helping her father John McClane save the world, she dropped out of school to be an actor. While in between gigs, her friends abandoned her to kill the stunt driver in Death Proof, so she travels to New York, then Toronto, collecting evil exes along the way. Things do not work out with Scott Pilgrim, but after she moves on, she ends up trapped in a bunker with John Goodman during the Cloverfield events. Once escaped from the bunker, to help the fight for Earth, she develops technology to reverse time in the hopes of stopping the catastrophes. Unfortunately, she severely alters the course of reality to the point that superheroes exist, and she finds that the serial killer that her friends had defeated had become a beloved hero. She cannot wrap her mind around this concept and tries to defeat him as the villain Royal Pain. Her plans are thwarted, and her own technology is used against her, first by her enemy, then again by his son. Despite having her timeline so severely muddled already, she tries to improve on her technology. A lab accident sends her back to be born in pre-Civil War America as Mary Todd. Completely unaware of her past, future, she does not realize she is responsible for the existence of vampires, but helps her husband Abe Lincoln defeat them in the Civil War before finally settling into a long overdue old age. Natalie Portman. She starts out as an assassin's apprentice in The Professional, then she travels across the universe and back in time to become the leader of Naboo in Star Wars. After giving birth to the heroes, who will go on to save the galaxy, she then travels across the universe and forwards in time to Britain to get caught in a revolution in V for Vendetta, before becoming a ballet dancer in Black Swan, and then goes on to meet Thor. Ever since Disney got rid of their The Great Movie Ride, I thought they should replace it with the Great Tom Hanks Movie Ride. Start out with Walt Disney welcoming you to the ride, then follow Tom Hanks through an airport terminal, to him flying a plane, then it crash lands on a volcanic island, then he finds and captains a boat, before it's taken over by pirates, then a mermaid rescues him, then they swim to Europe, where he fights Germans and 3 different conspiracy terrorists, before riding the Polar Express to New York to fall in love with Meg Ryan 3 different times as he runs across the country coaching the Rockford Peaches and managing the Onagers, before he takes a rocket to the moon. David Tennant. He was the Doctor and a wizard in Harry Potter. An alien that can travel through time and space and regenerate is also a wizard who knows magic. And the original Serpent of Eden who tempted humanity, but later fell in love with an angel and defied hell to save Earth. What with Kilgrave in Jessica Jones and his upcoming serial killer role, Tennant has actually played some incredibly fucked up characters. His character arc would be dark and also R-rated because he played Casanova once. I just cannot figure out how Hamlet fits in yet. Jim Carrey. After escaping the Truman Show, he builds a love for animals and becomes a pet detective. During his career, he falls in love with a girl who frequently changes her hair color, gets dumped after a while, and goes into a downward spiral. He now finds himself at Hoville, where he lives on the top of a mountain. He then becomes able to control the universe and answer everyone's prayers, which he messes up terribly, and after his powers are taken away he begins working as a cable installation technician. It's during this period of time that he meets the guy that he ends up really becoming best friends with, Lloyd. Morgan Freeman. From hanging out with Andy Dufresne in prison, Morgan Freeman ends up as God in Bruce Almighty. Started from the bottom, now he literally created the universe, is all powerful and all knowing, and is everywhere at once. Guess we finally know how he was always able to procure those hard to find things in prison. Maybe he wasn't even in prison. Maybe he was just there guiding Andy in some nurturing way. Without him Andy would have broken many times. Maybe he was in fact always God in each of his movies, playing the part. Even in Driving Miss Daisy or Lucky Number 7. He dispenses wisdom and wit, could be imagined in some movies, or in complete control of others. He is the shining light in everything he touches. A goddamned national freaking treasure. De Niro has the most insane, by a mile, and I think I'd watch it. Conveniently, much of it takes place in New York City area. He's just one guy with a lot of moonlighting gigs. Gangster, taxi driver, boxer, Vietnam vet, catatonia patient. He goes through quite a grind. Then he ends up as Ben Stiller's father-in-law, emerges from a talk show hosting dream interlude, to return to gangster life. He doesn't stay still for long. What a story, though. He's late 20s America, basically. Matthew McConaughey. He started out as a guy that couldn't move on from high school. He'd hang around younger girls trying to recapture his youth, but suddenly got his stuff together and went to law school. Ended up winning a case involving a father taking revenge on 2 men that assaulted his daughter, but afterwards kinda just hung out for a long time. Went from quirky relationship to quirky relationship. Everyone began to doubt him and think he was shallow. He even contracts AIDS. Then out of fucking nowhere dude peaks in his 40s. Becomes a genius homicide detective, a Wall Street broker and a freaking astronaut, while being a male stripper on the side. Ryan Reynolds. He starts out working at a pizza place with a girl and a guy. Then goes on to work as a waiter at a restaurant. Then he takes the name Van Wilder and stays around college for a bit. He then ends up working as a Green Lantern, but that ain't for him, so he makes a bit of money on the side pretending to be Deadpool, until he can actually become Deadpool.